So from the Boks chasing glory to Eskom racing the clock and a coup threat buried in a government memo. Today's show is all about strategy under pressure, science in the shadows, and what it takes to hold the line. My friends, this is Daily Bagel, the morning show keeping you informed and entertained with the most important news out there. Let's get into it. And kicking us off with current affairs, South Africa's intelligence agencies have just released their latest big picture security reports. And look, if you believe the news headlines, there's a coup brewing in your backyard. Now the truth though is still serious, but not quite what the headlines suggest. You see, the national security strategy laid out the country's top threats through to 2028. And yes, a coup did make the list. And it's reportedly the first time that a coup risk has been formally named in a public security report. But alongside it were more familiar threats: cybercrime, climate shocks, targeted assassinations, and violent unrest. It's important to remember this is not a prediction, it's a risk register. Still though, the timing has raised eyebrows here. You see, the minister in the presidency said that suspected coup planners are, and I quote, being monitored, though there's been no actual attempt within recent weeks. Now, critics say that this warning was vague, inflammatory, and possibly aimed at the rogue elements going on within SAPS, including the KZN police commissioner who, as we know, recently went public with corruption claims and has become something of a lightning rod. So the broader message here is that South Africa's security cluster is under pressure to prove it's being proactive and not asleep at the wheel, especially after the 2021 riots when the only intelligence report that mattered came in too late. And next up, Eskom says it may not hit its key emission targets by 2030 because most of its coal stations just aren't built to clean up after their own mess, I guess. So currently only one station meets the sulfur and nitrogen standards, and upgrading the rest could reportedly cost over 250 billion rand. And Eskom admits that it may not be ready in time. And now that's a problem because these targets aren't just local goals. They're part of South Africa's international climate commitments, and missing them could put billions in funding and trade at risk. Still though, Eskom says that it's not ditching coal. Their view is that the issue isn't coal, it's pollution, and that they're working with the CSIR on tech that scrubs emissions from aging plants while delaying shutdowns at stations like Hadrina and Camden. So Eskom calls it a just transition, keeping jobs and the lights on while modernizing on the go. But with no proven tech and legal exemptions expiring soon, Eskom's margin for error is shrinking fast. And on to our quick fire mentions. FlySafair has started rearranging flights this week as it braces for potential pilot strikes. Now, routes have been quietly reshuffled and passengers are being notified, part of a wider effort to limit disruptions before things possibly escalate. And over 100,000 informal workers have warned of mass unrest if the government bans single cigarette sales. You see, the proposed tobacco law would wipe out daily income for spaza shops, a move that they say risks further fueling the illicit cigarette market. And on to our finance section. Look, let's face it, most of us have ended up at a Woolworths food stop at an Engen garage at some point. Whether it was for a post-party snack or a quick top-up on the road, it's kind of become a part of the South African experience. So this week, Woolworths and Engen opened their 100th store together, a 24/7 convenience model that most regulars now call Wengen. But behind this announcement is a much bigger, more interesting trend. You see, petrol stations are being redesigned not around fuel, but around retail. Remember, as we mentioned last week, BP is upgrading 500 of its stations with better storefronts. Investec has invested over 4 billion rand into petrol stations because of the potential that they see in the retail layer. You see, the logic here is that as electric vehicles grow and pit stops get longer, it is going to be the shop and not the pump that drives real value. So for Woolies, this move comes at a crucial time. With its share price down nearly 21% over the past 6 months, the group's now being forced to rethink its game plan from these new futuristic store experiences to this now doubling down on this 24/7 access play. Time will tell whether or not this plan is the right one. And on to our quick fire mention. South Africa and the US have reportedly started their urgent negotiations to avoid a 30% tariff on local exports from the 1st of August. Now, Ramaphosa has confirmed that some firms have already seen sales to the US collapse, with vehicle exports down over 80%. And the Reserve Bank may still want to lower South Africa's inflation to 3%. And while this sounds great, Anchor Capital says that this could delay rate cuts indefinitely, and argues that the economy isn't strong enough to handle it. And on to our sports section. My friends, there is a lot on the cards this weekend, but make no mistake, it belongs to rugby. Saturday night brings a rare doubleheader. The Springboks take on Georgia and Nelspruit, And then just a couple hours later, the Junior Boks faced New Zealand in the Under-20 World Championship final. It is the first time that South Africa has made the final in over a decade, and they are fielding an unchanged side after dominant wins over England, Australia, and Argentina. And before all that, rugby fans get an early taste with two headline tests. France and New Zealand meets in a clash with two practically new lineups, both coaches ringing the changes as they build their depth for the 2027 World Cup. And in Brisbane, the Wallabies host the British and Irish Lions for the first time in 12 years. Now the Lions are unbeaten on tour thus far, and how's this? For the first time since 1896, not a single Welsh player has cracked the matchday squad. And on to our quick fire mentions. 11 South Africans are in the field for this weekend's Open Championship at Royal Portrush, including Louis Oosthuizen, who famously lifted the claret jug in 2010. He is still the last South African to do it. And it is a massive weekend at the Tour de France. Today's 11-kilometer time trial is pure pain. Straight uphill, no place to hide. Saturday brings 4 brutal climbs in the Pyrenees, while Sunday's stage throws the breakaway hopefuls a lifeline before the road flattens out next week. And before we continue, as you should expect, here is your bagel bite of the day. We recently asked which country drinks the most amount of coffee per person. Now let's flip it. Which country eats the most bread per person? Is it A, France, B, the United States, or C, Turkey? We'll give you the answer at the end of the show. And on to our wildcard section. The 1904 Olympic Marathon was such a mess that they nearly banned the event forever. For starters, it was 32 degrees, the course was pretty much dust and dirt, and the organizers, in all their wisdom, only set up one water station. I'm serious. And what followed was pure chaos. So for starters, a man by the name of Fred Laws quit halfway, caught a lift in a car, and then jogged the last bit and waved to the crowd like he had won gold. The crowd cheered, the officials almost gave him the medal until someone snitched. Then we had one guy who did win, his name was Thomas Hicks, and he was literally fed rat poison and brandy mid-race because his trainers thought it would boost his performance. Let's just say he didn't exactly finish strong. He was hallucinating and had to be dragged over the line by his team. One runner ate rotten apples, took a nap, and still finished 4th. Another was chased off the track by wild dogs. In the end, only 14 of the 32 finished, and after that circus, the Olympics almost pulled the plug on marathons entirely. And we can't exactly blame them. And as for that bagel bite, the answer is Turkey. You see, according to the Guinness World Records, they hold the title for the highest bread consumption per person, which is roughly 200 kilos a year. Someone calculated that that's more than a loaf a day, every single day. I think I developed a gluten intolerance just reading that. And my friends, that's it for today's show, and that's it for the week. Thanks so much for tuning in. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the downtime. Be kind to one another, and I'll see you all bright and early on Monday morning. Cheers.